Hello everyone! My name is Nathan, and welcome to the third installment of Leeria character designs. In this episode, I'll be talking about my design process for Blaze, the fiery lesbian. Now before we get into things, I want to talk really quickly about the future of this series. My plan is to only record my design process for the core cast, as part of my prep work for this year, but that's only 9 characters of the around 50 in the entire series, as of my last count. After that, I don't really have any intention of continuing this series. I might bring it back in the future, but probably not. Sort of related to this is the time commitment for working on this series. I can finish the character sheets themselves in about 2 hours, but the script writing, voiceover, and editing takes like 3 weeks. Now, of course, there's still less work than my typical videos, and I'm hoping to streamline things a bit in the future, but you might have to be patient, especially after this episode. I've got a bunch of other important videos lined up for the next couple of months, including, if everything goes according to plan, the start of my first ever art tutorial, so the next installment might not drop for a while. Okay, with all of that out of the way, let's talk about Blaze. As I mentioned in the previous episode, Blaze is one of my favorite characters in Leeria. This is for a lot of reasons, which I'll get into later, but one of them is that Blaze is very gay and has a massive crush on her best friend Sylvia. And Sylvia is naturally completely oblivious to this fact. So for most of the comic, there's going to be like this awkward duo, and I love it. It's amazing. I don't know why. It's neat. Anyways, let's talk about Blaze's personality. Unlike the rest of the main cast, Blaze's archetype is not very well defined, and by not well defined, I mean I never came up with one. If I had to give her one though, it would probably be something like the big angry lesbian. She has quote-unquote anger issues and is easily set off by small annoyances, which is something that Hunter and Darren exploit for endless fun. And the only reason they've survived this long is because Blaze is actually really nice and doesn't want to hurt people. Or at least not kill them. Moving on to visual elements. Just like Sylvia, Blaze has a strong monochrome color scheme, except that hers is red instead of purple. Why red? Fire. It's because of fire. It represents Blaze's burning passion, deadly skill, and generally fiery personality. You'll see the fire motif a lot in Blaze's design because it is kind of the core idea that her entire character is built around. If you couldn't tell already, since her name is Blaze. Very subtle, I know. Sticking with that fire theme, Blaze's symbol, which is just what I'm going to be calling these things from now on, is a small flame. This is important for all the reasons I outlined above, and also because it relates to Blaze's abilities. Let's just say the fire theme can sometimes go beyond just symbolism. Similar to Sylvia, again, Blaze has a lot of feline influence to her design, but since I wanted the two of them to feel distinct, I gave Blaze a handful of different features, like a large tail instead of a thin one. Basically, I went for a more long-haired look, to contrast with Sylvia, who's more of a short hair. I also changed the fur pattern to be more fox-like for Blaze, which seemed fitting, whereas Sylvia's patterning is more like that of a typical color point, with dark ears and paws. Now, I didn't talk about this at all in the previous episode, which I kind of regret, but I'd like to quickly go over the build and shape language I used for each character, because it's arguably the thing that I've defined the least about them. Like almost everything else, the personality, the color scheme, the symbol, all of that I've already figured out in advance, but the build and shape language was mostly just a vague idea. Thankfully, you didn't miss much from the previous episode. Sylvia's build is pretty simple. She's just very vertically oriented, very tall basically, with a strong rectangular base to show her reliability, covered in a bit of sharp fur to show how sour and harsh she is. For Blaze, things ended up being a bit more complicated. In the past, I'd imagined Blaze like a towering, muscle-bound badass, but I decided to not go in that direction for her design. She isn't really a gentle giant, more like a kind soul with a sharp temper, so instead I gave her a more modestly strong look while making sure it still looked feminine. I knew that Blaze was going to look very butch, but I didn't want to make it seem like she was macho or anything. On top of that base, I included a reoccurring pattern of inward-facing curves paired with outward-facing spikes, showing how kind and compassionate she is on the inside, something anyone who is close to her would know, as well as how terrifying she appears on the outside, and how lashing out in her anger can often hurt others. And then I also added a swoosh of hair on top of her head, because I wanted something to break up her silhouette that wasn't just more spiky fur. I actually really like this detail because A, I think it's super cute, and B, it's shaped like a lick of flame, further reinforcing the fire theme. And that brings us finally to Blaze's outfit, which was very easy to figure out. She is a soldier by trade, so of course she would have a weapon, and what would a soldier be without some armor? Hence her having a spear and a breastplate. The breastplate also happens to cover up her symbol instead of just disguising it, unlike any of the previous designs. This is intentional and very representative of Blaze's history and personality. She has a lot of very painful stuff in her past and is trying, both literally and figuratively, to cover them up, acting strong and capable so that people don't realize just how fragile and out of control she is on the inside. Which I just love so much. This is why Blaze is one of my favorites. Her story is just so deep and complex. I know I'm kind of tooting my own horn here, but I am legitimately proud of her as a character. She has sort of become the standard for my character writing in Leeria. Whenever I'm working on a character's personality or history, I think, how can I make them as interesting as Blaze? Which sounds cheesy, but is legitimately helpful. But that's enough gushing over my brainchild. Let's have the final reveal. And there you have it, Blaze's design. Honestly, I think hers is the strongest so far, but what do you guys think? Is it good and reflective of Blaze's personality? Does she look like a fiery girl boss? Let me know in the comments below. I really hope that you all like Blaze and her design as much as I do, because you'll be seeing a lot of her in the comic. She has several big character arcs and helps Sylvie and the others out of some tight spots on several occasions. Or if not, I at least hope that my design process was fun to watch. If you have enjoyed this video, you can give it a like and subscribe to see more in-depth discussions of things only I care about. You can also click the bell icon and select all from the drop-down list to be notified whenever I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!